everyone. Stop talking. All right, thank you so much for being here this morning. And I say this every single time, but I hate starting the meeting, starting this Celebrate Waukesha, because I know that what's happening at the table with everyone talking to each other, we're solving all the problems that exist in our community. But it is a beautiful morning. We have a great presentation. It's, as everyone knows, is on the school district and how they're going to basically reorganize. For me, I was born in Waukesha in 1961. When I went to school, all the schools, I mean, there was almost, I can't remember classes that weren't 30 kids for each class. Many times more than that, because the number of children in Waukesha kept on increasing during that entire time. We're in a different situation now. You'll hear all about it. I've already mentioned to some of the school board members, I'm glad I'm not on the school board. It's a tough job. I've also been asked by many citizens to do what they want to happen to have me make it happen. They say, well, there's elected officials for that. It's not the city of Waukesha mayor. I am interested in the topic. I mean, it does make a big impact on the city of Waukesha. But the job of the school district, the elected officials, as well as the superintendent and the staff, have a very difficult job. And I appreciate all that they're doing to basically look ahead 10, 15 years and make decisions that will impact us all, but decisions that have to be made and decisions that will make our community better. So there's my little speech. I want to thank, we have a number of elected officials here. From the office of Senator Ron Johnson, we have Ginger Kolsmoonberger. From the office of Senator Julian Bradley, we have Brett Healy and Nick Redinger. We have Waukesha County Supervisors Mike Brawley, Daryl Enriquez, and Larry Nelson. City Council members Rico Camacho, Mike Christine, Stephen Trieste, Doreen Wickerson. Jim, I'm going to ask you if you have school board members here, Jim, not right now, but when you start your speech, to let us know who the school board members that are here. I want to thank Tuscan Hall. They always do a phenomenal job. Thank you, Tuscan Hall. And also, our centerpieces are done by Helping Hands, which is a group with the Waukesha Parks, Recreation, and Forestry Department. They volunteer their time twice per month to assist with various city projects. We always appreciate that. And also, just so everyone knows, Chief Goblin today is his 1-year anniversary with working for the city. So, he gave me the thumbs up. He doesn't know what I'm saying next. Which is the honeymoon is over. So, what's that? Yeah, well, there you go. Roll up the sleeves, yeah. That's why he wears short sleeves. I'm going to turn this over to Tony, but thank you all for being here, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy the presentation.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you again for coming. I'd just like to share a few quick updates on city projects and events. So we are continuing to make headway on the city's strategic plan. There's 4 priority areas: financial sustainability, service and excellence, people-centered development, and engaged community. So if you want to read about our quarterly progress, please go to the city website. One of the things that I'm super excited about, and I think someone I was talking to earlier said I might be a little sick, is that the city's budget season is underway. So as we kick off our community investment discussions. You're invited to what one alder calls the best meeting of the year, which is a finance committee meeting at the city garage where department directors talk about all the vehicles that they would like to replace. So again, that's on Tuesday, August 26th at the city garage. Once the CIP or the capital budget is completed, what the city then does is we go on to the operating budget, and that planning goes through the fall. Like many of your organizations, the city continues to face a challenging landscape with tightening labor market, rising costs. So we are in a position as well where we have the added structural complexity of state-imposed levy limits on 65% of our operating revenues. So in some ways, some of the challenges that, from an organizational standpoint, that the school district's dealing with, we're dealing with in a different way in terms of the funding framework that the state has imposed on us. But I would say in the face of that, we continue to look for different solutions to the challenges that we face and how we're going to plan for the future. In terms of projects this year, we're still working on a number of construction projects, including Silvernail Road. Currently, concrete is being poured on that project, and it's anticipated that that will be completed by the end of September. And if you're ever looking for construction updates, please go to the city's website because there is weekly updates on all of the different construction projects that we have, including playground installations like the one at Woodfield Park. And this is just a quick plug. So our recent playground installations have been in partnership with community volunteers. So if you're ever interested in helping, that's something that on a consistent annual basis we're replacing playgrounds. And soon we'll announce when those volunteer opportunities are. So for summer events, right, we are at the backside of summer, but we're certainly excited about fall. So we hope to see many of you at Tribute Tuesday, Waukesha Night Out, Neighborhood Beer Gardens, Oktoberfest, and all the awesome events that the city does. And those are on the website as well. With that, it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker this morning, Dr. James Siebert, Superintendent of the Waukesha School District. Fond du Lac native, Dr. Siebert holds a bachelor's and master's degree from Marion College, as well as a doctorate in educational leadership from Edgewood College. He began his career as a social studies teacher and then went on to serve as assistant principal, and eventually superintendent in several school districts. From 2009 to 2020, he served as superintendent of the Fond du Lac School District before taking his current role in Waukesha in July 2020. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Siebert.
Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Mayor. It's really a privilege for us to be here. As he said, I am Jim Siebert. I'm proud to be the superintendent here in Waukesha. I'm joined today by our Chief Financial Officer, Darren Clark, and our Deputy Superintendent, who most closely oversees teaching and learning, Jack Garman. They'll help me at the end if there are some questions that we can help you with and answer. I do not see any of our board members currently. However, they have spent almost the entire month of July with us, and I'll talk about some of the community outreach that we've done during that month, and we'll see most of them tonight at a couple of our committee meetings. With that being said, we are going to talk today about what we're calling our Optimizing the Future, or Optimizing Our Future, long-range planning process in the school district of Waukesha. And we'll show you the phases that we're going through, and the work that we're doing, and the way that we're trying to gather input, engage the community, engage our own staff, and figure out a sustainable path forward for the school district of Waukesha, and talk about that as an overall process. So we have a three-phased process, and we'll actually walk through it in all three phases. We started talking about this in March of 2020, so a few months back. And essentially in Waukesha, like most other districts, we have declining enrollment, and it's most closely tied to the decline in the birth rate that dates back into the early 2000s. It's been declining across the United States. You read about it in almost everything that you see on social media, in the news. You hear about it across the country. So it's not just a Waukesha problem. It's a Wisconsin problem, and it's a United States problem. And actually, when we look at the data, we see that in the United States it's declined, in Wisconsin it's declined at a greater rate, and actually in Waukesha County it's declined at a greater rate than even the state of Wisconsin. So it is a little more pronounced in Waukesha County than it is in Wisconsin or across the United States, but it's certainly not unique to us, and we'll talk about that a little bit more here in just a minute. So we're going to go through phase one and some of the information that we shared in our phase one presentations. In April and May, we had 9 different sessions that we had for our staff and our community. We'll talk about that in just a few slides. We're currently in phase two, which is the gathering input session, and we'll talk about how we're doing that and the 26 sessions that we've held this summer to gather input from our staff, our parents, and our community as we try to figure out what is that sustainable path forward. And then that all builds into phase three, which is this fall. October through December is our target date for us to make a final recommendation to the Board of Education for their considered approval. And that would go into effect for the 26-27 school year. So we actually start the 25-26 school year 1 month from today, which is hard to believe, but nothing changes for this school year. So everything will look exactly the same in the school district of Waukesha. Anything we're talking about here today would be in effect for 26-27. So essentially dating back to March when we started talking about it to September of 26, 18 months for us to prepare, engage, and then ultimately implement a plan. So phase one, we'll talk a little bit more about how we went about this actual process. So we had some tenets that we thought were very critically important that we wanted to clearly communicate to our staff, to our parents, and to our community. And the first one being that it has always been, and it always will be, our primary objective to provide high-quality education to the students of this community. And anybody who wants to take advantage of this opportunity. Obviously, the educational marketplace has grown, it's widened, people have lots of choices today. We wanted to make it very clear that we love our teachers, we love our administrators, all the people that work within the school district of Waukesha. We have a very high retention rate, very low retirement rate. People are staying with us. We're building something very special, and we're very proud of their focus on student achievement. We want to continue to offer all the great things that we do in the school district of Waukesha. We'll talk about some of those today. We're very proud of the offerings we have when it comes to our technological prowess, our dual language program, our STEM and our academies at South programming. We have a lot of things that we love and are proud of and like to do, and we want to continue to be able to do those things. But we think the important thing for us, in order to be able to make that promise, to be able to do those things continually, is to become a little more lean in terms of the number of facilities that we operate. And we'll talk about why we think that's important. The other thing we'll talk about is that we're really strong financially. And so we've prided ourselves on being strong financial stewards. That's a backdrop of this process, being financially responsible. We had a 2018 referendum, $60 million. Most school districts take 20 years to pay those off. This board chose 10, and we're actually going to pay it off in April of 2026. So we're going to pay it off in 8 years versus 10 through paying ahead. We think that's impressive. There aren't many school districts that are debt-free, period. And so to be the 7th largest in the state of Wisconsin and be debt-free, we think is very impressive. The mayor mentioned it. We were growing for a long period of time. We actually built 2 new schools as recently as 1993, Summitview Elementary and Waukesha West High School. And our enrollment peaked in 12-13 at over 13,000 students. However, today, we're around 10,500 all in resident students, as well as our EHE Virtual Academy students. But the students you'll see in our actual brick and mortar facilities is now under 10,000. It's at 9,675 for the year we just finished. We'll talk more about that. And then ultimately our goal, as we started this process, was to reduce our capacity by 10 to 15%. To be in line with that current and declining enrollment trend. We decline about 2% per year, and that's projected projected to go through at least 2034. And we don't see any signs of that changing. And we also made a commitment that we would look at our K-8 schools out of the gate. So we weren't talking about the high schools to keep that conversation off of the table. There's a lot of conversation around high schools in Waukesha and how many should we truly have. We may have to have that conversation at some point, but we're not having it currently. So another slide that we've used pretty consistently is this one, to show people that, like I said earlier, it's not just a Waukesha situation. We truly are not alone. And we list a number of the districts, and I mentioned we're the 7th largest. Almost everyone within the top 10 is listed on this chart, and the bigger districts are dealing with this a little more rapidly, I would say, than maybe some of the smaller districts. But you also see our neighbors in Kettle Moraine, who just recently had to make a decision to close in elementary school. So you also see Arrowhead and the feeders talking about consolidation. The challenge is real for all of us, not only at Waukesha County, but throughout Wisconsin and the United States. And then in the blue box, it's also true for our higher education partners. It's true for the workforce, those of you that are business owners. There's just challenges in terms of the number of people, period. And so that really starts with us, and it starts with the birth rate, and it starts with us graduating the larger classes and bringing in the smaller classes that are going to then matriculate through our system, which is why we want to address the K-8 process first. So in just the terms of, this was really important even for our staff. A lot of people didn't really understand. They know their school, but they don't know how big we are and how many schools we actually have. So currently we have 12 elementary schools in Waukesha. We have 4 middle schools, which includes our Saratoga STEM site. We have 4 high schools, which includes Waukesha East, which is at the White Rock campus. That's our alternative high school. And also houses the Waukesha Transition Academy, which is 18 to 21-year-old students with special needs that get to stay in that program, learn life skills, and get prepared for their future. We have 1 administrative building, which is now the Blair Elementary building. That's where we are. We have 1 service building for our custodial and maintenance staff. That's adjacent to Saratoga. And then we have 1 leased building, which is Pleasant Hill, which is near Kirby's Corners. And I'll show you in a little bit. We closed that in 2010. And we actually leased that to the Richardson School, which is a special education program that we have students in, and many other districts in Waukesha County have students in as well. So 23 total buildings within the district footprint. So to look a little more at what our on-site capacity and enrollment looks like, you'll see here when we look at the capacity of the elementary schools, we're just under 6,000 at 5,743. On site last school year, and all of these numbers are based on the year we just finished. They'll be roughly 2% lower as we go into this year. We have 4,251, so we have nearly 1,500 available seats at the elementary level. And then you can see how that progresses. We have roughly 870 seats at the middle school. We have 1,158 seats at the high school level. And then we have Blair, Pleasant Hill, and White Rock. So those are the total capacities of those buildings. Those were all in the prime elementary schools. Right now, we only have students at the White Rock campus, which is Waukesha East, and the Transition Academy. There's 119 there. So we count those essentially as flex spaces because we could convert those back into elementary schools. Should this rebound, we could use them again. So overall, our overall capacity is 14,232 seats. We had, like I said, last year, 9,675. So that has us with 4,557 vacant seats. And what we've been trying to talk about in this entire process is there's a cost to that, right? There's a cost to that vacant space. There's a cost to not utilizing buildings fully and efficiently. And ultimately, that's the rationale behind this process. So every year we'll talk here in just a few slides about how we right-size our staffing, we right-size everything in the school district of Waukesha, but we haven't necessarily right-sized the buildings, maybe to the extent that we need to, and that's the genesis behind this work. So if we look at enrollment by level, and we go back actually with a 20-year snapshot, what you can see is that in 04-05, we had nearly 13,000 students in the school district of Waukesha. And then you can see this is the on-site enrollment, and as you see we go forward, we're at 9,675. You see the numbers look a little funky here at 9-10, between 9-10 and 14-15. That's when we transitioned and brought the 6th graders from elementary up into the middle schools. And so that's why the elementary numbers look different and the middle school numbers look bigger. And these presentations, we have a vast array of them, and we have voiceovers of these presentations are all on our website. And we can certainly share this through Rebecca, and she can share it with any of you. A lot of the slides are similar. So overall, during this period of time, we've had a 25.5% decline in enrollment over the last 20 years. Interestingly, when Kettle Moraine went through their process over the last 20 years, they had a 25% decline. So we're very similar in terms of the number of students. There's just fewer of them. But what's another interesting tidbit is that I mentioned a couple times that we're the 7th largest school district in Wisconsin. And we were in 24, 25, and we were throughout this entire 20-year period. And that calculation goes all the way back to 2002, when we started counting who was the biggest and so forth. We have always been the 7th largest school district. So that again tells you we are not alone, right? Because all those other districts are losing at a similar rate, which keeps us in that 7th slot. And so we also have some enrollment studies that we've done. And we had a state of Wisconsin study that was done by the Applied Population Lab out in WMAS in 2023. They did it for everyone. And they talked about how city school districts, such as Waukesha, are projected to decrease the most, dropping by 2.3% annually. We've averaged right around 2%, so that's pretty good for us. And then we did our own study with them in 2024, and we do one about every 4 or 5 years. And that showed our enrollment decline between 1,000 and nearly 1,500 students over the next 5 years. And that continued enrollment decline was, as I mentioned earlier, projected through 2034. That doesn't mean it stops them, that just means that's where the study stops. So we'll get another study, and we would anticipate that that will continue beyond. So in terms of our, again, our total student capacity, 14,232 with the available seats. When we started this process in phase 1, we really thought about Blair and Pleasant Hill being flex space, so we took that out thinking we could reuse those. So we subtracted 706. And so we came up with a net school capacity of 13,526, and that's the number we used to take the reduction off of. So a 10% capacity reduction would be 1,353 seats. A 15% reduction would be 2,029 seats. And so those are the numbers that we use going into phase 2. And you'll see that even with a 10% capacity reduction, we still have nearly 2,500 vacant seats. With a 15% capacity reduction, we still have 1,500 vacant seats. So we still have capacity should this bounce back, should this come back at some particular time, and we have those flex spaces that we could use should we need to. This is another slide that Darren generally did during our presentations, but it's a visual to show you all of our funding happens. The biggest day in public education is the 3rd Friday in September. A lot of people don't know that, but that's the day that kids get counted by the DPI, and all of your funding gets tied to your enrollment on that particular Friday in September. And so you can see what that has looked like dating back to 12-13 at the high point to the 10,559 that we have in the year we just finished. That's our resident kids and our E-Achieve types. And the key point here is that 86% of our revenue comes from the number of students that we have. So we're not a business that makes things, right? Our funding is based on how many students do we have in the actual school district, not only in the buildings, but in our E-Achieve program. And so ultimately, as that declines, so does our revenue, and therein lies struggle and what we're trying to get out in front of and address. So we're going to talk about some of the things that we've done to date in order to address these challenges. And the first one is the right sizing of our elementary sections. And so we just took a look back at how many teachers did we have in the elementary schools in 2011-12. We had 242. So when we say sections, that means 242 elementary teachers or 242 sections of kindergarten through 6th grade at that time, 5th grade at that time. To last year, we had 196 elementary teachers In this year we're coming into, we are going to have right around 185. So it's been a continual decrease in the amount of teachers that we have. We're able to do that essentially through voluntary attrition and retirement. So we've been very successful in doing that. And so you also can see that our class sizes remain relatively the same. So it's been that consistent downturn in enrollment that we've been able to match the staffing to, and now we believe it's time to match the buildings to it as well. We've done some closures that we've talked about. So Pleasant Hill back in 2010, Blair, the building that we're in right now, sat vacant for 4 years after it was closed in 2019. We came back there in 2023. And in 2022, we actually merged Whittier Elementary with Hatfield. We were at a point there where we were using 42% of the combined population of those buildings. It didn't make sense to keep running both of them, so we were able to merge them together, and that has worked very well. And then we also had the great fortune of working with Cindy at Carroll University and selling Randall and the Lindholm building to them to continue to be used for educational purposes in downtown Waukesha. And that allowed us to then relocate our STEM school from Randall over to Whittier. We came to Blair, and now as we stand, we don't have any vacant buildings in the school district of Waukesha, which is good for us, it's good for the city, it's good for everybody to not have vacant schools, and it's our goal, obviously, going forward as well. We have made a number of reductions, as we've talked about. Every year, we're right-sizing our staffing and our people to make sure that we have the right number of people for the number of students that we have. Joni and Alyssa are sitting right here. They're our partners at First Student, our bus drivers. And we went from 101 routes back in 1819 to a much more efficient 75 routes in 24-25. And they're actually going to be our school board student services tonight to talk about our success looking into this year. We're grateful to have them as partners. And we've also done a great job, we think, with COVID money, ESSER money, maximizing those one-time resources in HVAC projects and curricular purchases, and making sure that those dollars are not recurring, that compile and compound the situation in terms of spending. We've also done some strategic investments that we're proud of, and we're really proud of the student opportunities that we have. And so these are the things, when I referenced in the earlier slides, that we want to continue to do. We've standardized our curriculum across the school district of Waukesha over the last 4 years, spent a little over $6 million to make sure we have guaranteed and viable curriculum resources across the elementaries, middles, high schools. We invested in a district-wide building security system that's state-of-the-art to make sure that our kids and teachers are safe. Every year, despite our declining enrollment, our special ed numbers continue to increase. So last year that we just finished, 18.5% of our students have a special need, and so every year we continue to increase our special education staffing to meet those needs. Last year was our first year of the block schedule at the high school. That'll continue in year 2. That's been transformative for them, deeper dives and with more time and less transitions. We're also working on a middle school schedule update that'll go into effect in 26-27. And then we've done a number of different building system upgrades. So all the buildings that we have left within the district portfolio are very nice buildings. And so we're going to have some difficult decisions of what we close because they're quality, they're well maintained, and they're great environments for our kids and our teachers. We also have some amazing student opportunities that we're proud of. So we have a tuition agreement. A lot of people might not know this with the Montessori School of Waukesha. So our parents can sign up for that right in our Infinite Campus portal, just like they can sign up for any other school. We have a revenue sharing agreement with Montessori. Our EHE virtual school has been growing and has a little bit of an uptick right now that we're proud of. And so we have kids from all over the state of Wisconsin, and we actually started a consortium program at the EHE Academy where school districts can sign up with us, and then their students can participate in athletics at their school district while they're taking all their courses via EHE. So that's been significant for us. Our dual language program is one of the calling cards of the school district of Waukesha. We say it's the best in the state of Wisconsin, and we believe that it is. We want to maintain that and continue to do it. We think we can just do it in a smaller footprint. Our K-8 STEM program we're proud of, and you'll see in these proposals we're talking about putting it together and merging it in one building. We think there's some efficiencies there in terms of teacher and staff collaboration, as well as ease for parents in going to one site. We have a couple of charter schools. We have our engineering prep academy and our health academy at Waukesha South. We're very proud of those. And we have an increase in dual enrollment programming with partners like WCTC, Carroll, and others, where we have kids that every year we're spending more and more money on helping those kids have college experiences during high school. And we now have kids graduating with associate degrees as well as high school diplomas. Those are all great things that we want to continue to do because they're good for kids and they're good for our families. So in order to continue to do all those things, again, not to beat the drum, but we think we need to be more efficient in terms of the buildings that we have. So we did have 6 different meetings in phase 1. We had, or 9 I should say, we had 6 for our staff, 3 for our community members and parents, and they basically were a lot of that information. That's primarily the slide deck that we used. So in those, we had 36 people that attended the 6 staff sessions. People were, it was in April and May, and people were a little at the end of the year busy, I think. We had 55 people attend our community and parent ones, and we used a QR code during those sessions so that we could ultimately keep track of all that information. And then we actually created an FAQ document with all the questions that people had. That's on our website as well, so we have over 100 questions from that process that we answered via the QR. So let's just wrap up phase 1 and get into phase 2. So as I said, we're looking to create this long-range plan to guide our future decision-making. We're certainly not alone in this declining enrollment landscape. We're looking to look at the K-8 schools and reduce by 10 to 15%, and using the calendar year of 2025, as I outlined earlier, to work with the board and work with our community and our staff to make those decisions. So let's get into phase 2. So phase 2 is the second part. And as I mentioned, we had 26 over the summer, in-person sessions for staff, and we had in-person sessions for parents in our communities. We'll talk about what those look like. We also had the opportunity for people to not come in person, so we have voiceover recordings that they can watch. They watch a phase 2 presentation that Darren, Jen, and I did together. Then they get to ultimately tell us what the strengths of an option are, what the wonderings they might have are, and what opportunities for enhancement they might see. And then they also get to rank the options and say, this is my favorite, this is number 1, this is my least favorite, this is number 4. When we did those sessions in person, they were 90 minutes long. We would start in the boardroom with a 5 to 10 minute overview. And then we would break them into small groups, and we would spend 15 minutes on each of those options that we'll talk about here in just a little bit. And then about 15 minutes before we were done, they got a link to the survey. Really good dialogue. We had a lot of great dialogue, and we used the Post-it note process where they used green Post-its for strengths, orange Post-its for wonderings, blue Post-its for opportunities for enhancement. We used Sharpies, put them on posters. We have over 2,800 Post-its on these posters that we're going through right now using the month of August to look at that feedback, and those will all be on our website for everybody to see within this week. So when we talked about how are we going to go about choosing schools and designing these options for possible consideration of how to reduce the footprint, we really talked about 5 things in terms of the district footprint, trying to adjust obviously to align with our enrollment, trying to maintain geographic balance as best as possible, which isn't an easy task when you have that many buildings. Considering what we could potentially have real estate transactions around, and you'll see there are 3 particular areas where we think we can be successful. We really want to have that continued commitment to dual and to STEM, and we want to continue that ongoing commitment to curricular alignment, and we think that is one of the strengths of the School District of Waukesha that allows us to do this, because we're so consistent across the district. It really doesn't matter what building you're in, you're going to get the same experience. We also had to look at some building considerations, and we tried to look at a wide array, 9 different things that we would consider when thinking about which are the best buildings to keep within the School District of Waukesha and which ones might be the ones to move away from and see if we could sell or repurpose. That's, as I said earlier, difficult because the buildings we have remaining are very nice. But those are some of the things that we're looking at, from safety and accessibility to parking lot capacity to recent renovations, what have we done in there, to the flexibility, to the deferred maintenance. All those things are important for us to consider when we're trying to make these big decisions and ask our board to make those big decisions. So we're going to walk through the actual options that we have. And as a cabinet, we created, that's our administrative executive team, there's 6 of us, we created these options. They're not set in stone by any way, shape, or form. That's why we're doing all the gathering input, and we're trying to get ideas and what people think could be better, or what's palatable to the most amount of people. And so we do have 4 different options that we'll walk through high level with you today. And then ultimately, each of these options requires some level of boundary adjustment or some level of redistricting, which probably makes sense to you, right? Because if you have fewer schools, you obviously have to reassign where the students go. But we'll walk through them, and then we'll talk about how many people we had in each of our sessions. So there's 4 of them. We have a K-8 STEM option at Summit View. We have a K-8 STEM school at West Paul. We have a grade reconfiguration where 5th grade moves up to the middle schools. Part of that thinking is in the 2018 referendum, we spent $45 million of the $60 million in the middle schools, about $15 million at each, West Paul, Corning, and Butler. We feel we need to maximize that. We don't feel we can walk away from those buildings, so we have to use them in some capacity, at least that's our strategy. And then we have option D, which is a grade reconfiguration, which does bring the high schools into the conversation from the standpoint that we would move 7th and 8th graders up. We would have 4 K through 3 elementary schools, and we would have grades 4 through 6 intermediate schools. We'll talk through each of those. So the first one is the K-8 STEM at Summit View. And you'll see within each of these options, the buildings we think we can sell based on some developer interest are Saratoga, or the Saratoga complex, which includes the Harvey Phillip building and the service building. We also think we can sell White Rock, which is near Frank Park. That houses East and WTA at this point. We also think we can sell Pleasant Hill, which is near East Corners and is a popular spot. So those are the 3 that show up on every single plan. And then, depending on the plan, in this one we move STEM Elementary to Summit View, and we move Saratoga to Summit View, and it becomes a K-8 STEM. In all the plans, you'll see we close Bethesda in these options. Bethesda has an open concept nature to it that sets it apart a little differently in our minds. Doesn't mean that's going to happen for sure, but it was our thinking at the time. And then we also reduce dual language to 2 sites versus 4. Currently we have it in 4 elementary sites, which are Banting, Higher, Hawthorne, and Bethesda. And this one we move it to Banting and Higher. We're trying to have 2 sections of dual and 2 sections of regular ed, or regular mono education, every 4 across every grade. And we need our biggest buildings to be able to do that. And in this one, we would redistrict the elementary schools. That gets us a 12% reduction, or reduction of 1,641 seats. Then what we always do is we have an infographic slide that kind of shows people what does that mean at each level. So what this one does is it fills up the elementary schools quite nicely, right? Puts us at 95% of our capacity. Our middle schools are at 70% capacity within this plan. And our high schools in the first 3 plans, you'll see, are always at 69% capacity, even with East and WTA going over to Whittier. Currently, they're at about 72% capacity without that. Summit View would be at 95% of its capacity with K-8 STEM. It's our biggest elementary school with a capacity of 608 students. And you see the buildings we would sell and the buildings that we would close. Option B is K-8 STEM at Les Paul. Les Paul is a bigger building downtown, right near the library. It's actually 2 buildings that were put together. So we like that concept that the elementary could be in one of the houses, the middle school could be in the other. In this one, we do some better geographic balance, people tell us, by moving Banting and making Summit View a dual language site, so we have it on different parts of town. And we would go to 2 middle schools versus 3, with Corning and Butler, since Les Paul comes out to be the STEM school. You see here, we, in addition to Bethesda, we also recommend as a possibility closing Hawthorne for repurpose or selling. We sell those, or attempt to sell those 3 that we talked about in phase 1, Pleasant Hill, White Rock, and Saratoga, or the complex. And then we redistrict elementary and middle. That gets us a little bit higher reduction, 2,111 seats, or a 16% reduction, which is a little bit ticks above our cap. It's very difficult to hit exact targets, right? Because these buildings all have different capacities, and when you put them together, sometimes you can't hit exactly between 10 and 15, but this one gets us to 16. And when you look at the infographic slide, this one again does pretty well with the elementary schools. We are at 92% of the cap. When we go to 2 middle schools versus 3, you can see we'd be a little full. We'd be 101% based on last year's data. By the time we implement this, which would not be this year but the following year, that would be about 97%. It was about 2% per year. And what we've had a lot of conversation is these are all still based on class sizes at that level of 25. So we're not loading up the classrooms. And these schools have been that full in the past. Not everybody remembers that, but the mayor does, right? And maybe I'll just be the high school and so they can accommodate that number of students. The beauty of West Paul is we're at 70% of the K-8 STEM capacity, so there's some opportunity for growth there. And again, the high schools are at 69% capacity in this particular plan. Option C, that's the grade reconfiguration, first one, where the 5th graders move up to the middle schools. So in this one, elementary schools would become 4K through 4, and the middle schools become grades 5 through 8. We would move the K-8 STEM back to Summit View in this particular option. We sell those same buildings that we've talked about. We continue to close Bethesda and Hawthorne in this option. And ultimately, we have dual language back at Banting and higher. We have, the dual language program has, while the STEM program is slightly upticking in enrollment, which we're excited about, the dual enrollment program is slightly downticked, even a little quicker than our overall enrollment. So that's why we think we can go to 2 sites. However, we've talked openly that if we need to go from 4 sites to 3 to make sure that every kid and every family that wants that opportunity can have it, we certainly would do that as well. But this option gets us a little over the same one as B, right? 2,111 seats or a 16% overall reduction. And in terms of the infographic, you can see the elementary capacity is still relatively strong at 89%. The middle school capacity at 5A gets to 94%, which would be a good utilization of the middle school buildings that we've invested in. The K-8 STEM, again, at Summit View is at 95, so there isn't as much room for growth. And the high schools, again, stay at 69%. So as you can see in these first 3 options, there's strengths of these, and then there are challenges with these. And that's what we're trying to do through these gathering input, is to find that sweet spot that we can find. And then, let's go to option D. This is a completely different look within the District of Waukesha. And this is our total grade reconfiguration option that we wanted to get people's feedback on. So again, now this time we're moving the K-8 STEM to Les Paul. We are going down to 7 elementary schools as opposed to 12, and those would be 4K through 3. So those would be little reading and math hubs, we think, where we'd be really, really focused with the little kids and making sure that they're proficient in math and proficient readers by the time they leave 3rd grade, which is a key component of some new legislation, Act 20, that we believe very strongly in. I think it's some of the best bipartisan legislation that the state has created. We would go to 2 middle schools, Butler and Corning, but they would become 4-6 intermediate schools. So we really envision that being like, almost like the 6th graders being back in elementary, like self-contained 4th, 5th, and 6th, where they can really focus in with one teacher, or sometimes in the upper elementaries they might have 2 teachers, right? Like one teacher does the reading and the literacy, and one teacher focuses on the math, could be that, but really focused on getting kids support that they need. And then we would move the 7th and 8th graders in these models up to the high schools at North, South, and West. We continue to sell those 3 buildings that we've talked about, but because we're going to 7 elementaries, we have to have a few more elementaries come offline in a model such as this. So in addition to Bethesda and Hawthorne, we also have Prairie and Lowell, and then we would need to do an entire redistricting of the entire school district of Waukesha. The difference with this one is because you're making that much bigger swing, you can reduce the capacity by 22% or reduce a little over 3,000 seats. So in terms of the infographic, you can see now here the elementary schools, even with going down to 7, but going to 4K3, we're at 79%. We'd be at about 75% by the time we would start those in 2 years. Our intermediate schools would be at 102% capacity, again, probably 98% by the time we would implement this. We continue to have the ability to grow this film program at Les Paul. And what that does for the high schools is it gets them up to 96% capacity with the addition of the 7th and 8th graders. So it's the one model that addresses the high schools, but then it's a little not as helpful at the elementary level. So that's the last one that we've done. So again, those are the four that we've been getting feedback on, and we have, like I said, had 26 of these input sessions that we've done in phase 2 in June and July. We started in June with our school leadership team, so we have a strategic planning day. The Friday after school was out, which this year was June 13th, and we graduated on June 14th, so it was late. But we had a great day with about 200 of those leadership team members talking about this process and getting their feedback. I have a Discover School District Waukesha cohort, and we'll have our third one next year if any of you are interested in that. It'll be in our newsletter that comes out here near the end of the month. It's a community group. We meet one Friday a month, and we kind of do an under the hood look at all the different departments and all the behind the scenes parts of the school district. And so we had them have an opportunity. I also have a superintendent's advisory committee of teachers that meets on a monthly basis. They gave us feedback. And I have a superintendent's advisory council of parents that we meet 4 times a year, and they also gave us feedback in June. And then in July, we had 6 sessions for our staff, and we had 16 sessions for our parents and our community members, including 2 Spanish-only sessions that were great and very successful. All of those individuals had the opportunity to use the Post-its and have those conversations in small groups, and then that survey option as well as that online option that we have. So in terms of how that went, we had 218 people within June, within those 4 groups. We had 374 people sign up, and we had a total of 374 parents and community, 86 staff. So a total of 460 people sign up for the July sessions. And then we've had to date 272 people that took the survey. So when you add all that up, just under about 1,000 people that have provided some feedback to us, which we're grateful for and happy that they took the time to spend with us. So again, this is an overview of the process. We started talking about it back in March, as I said. We used April and May for phase 1, which is the first part of the slides that we talked through. Kind of trying to paint that picture of where we're at, how we're not alone, and how the challenges we have and how we plan to address them. We're currently in the gathering input phase, like we just showed you. And it all builds up to the end of the year, October and December, when we hope to present a recommendation for a final piece or final option for the board to consider for the 26-27 school year. So in terms of our next steps, right now what we're doing is, I said, that we have over 2,800 Post-its. We're trying to review those as cabinet members to see what are those telling us. We think we're hearing some things, but we want the data to validate it, right? So we're going to use the month of August to really dig into that data. And as I said, the school year starts a month from now. So we need to get ready for that too, and that's obviously important to get that off to a strong start. We'll have our August board meeting, not board, just one, next week. And on Wednesday, we'll give a high-level overview of how this summer went and kind of the next steps that we're anticipating. And then ultimately, when you have an 18-month process like this, sometimes it's not exactly easy to know exactly what your next steps are going to be. So by September or October, we don't know exactly where we're going to be, but we hope that by September we're narrowing down to 1 or 2 options or tweaks to options or new options that we think have validity, that we think have people excited somewhat about, and ultimately that's where we're going to try to get so that we can get a decision, or at least a considered decision, within October to December. So with that being said, we'd be happy to take some questions, and I have our contact information up there. Again, I'll share this. Rebecca has this. She can share it with you. You can call us. You can email us. You can do whatever you need to do to get the information that you need. And we'll be happy to try and take some questions. Go ahead, sir.
First of all, thank you for the clarity you provided and the phenomenal process that you and the board are going through. So I have a comment and a question, and I don't mean to sound disrespectful.
Sure.
Part of the richness of Waukesha is the ethnicity and diversity. And my understanding is there's I think it's the Mill Creek School, if I'm not mistaken, that has very different, has it's just a more white school from what I understand from the numbers. The ethnicity and diversity is not as rich, and there's even been things like lawsuits challenging the, some of the people that came to them that weren't white that had issues there. And so I guess my comment is, when you're looking at the different schools, you're looking to establish an equality of opportunity, and I would contend, maintain the diversity. If you've got one school that doesn't appear from what I've read in various things in my limited awareness, and my point is, if all things being equal, looking at the numbers makes great sense. But if one of those numbers is different than who Waukesha is, this could be a wonderful opportunity to say, well, maybe that one doesn't need to be here anymore, because if we're going to be getting rid of 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 elementary schools, let's make sure that the remaining ones provide the same quality and ethnicity and diversity that they all do. So not intended to be disrespectful, I'm just sharing what I've learned by trying to pay attention throughout this process.
Sure. No, I appreciate your comments. Ultimately, no matter how many elementary schools, for example, we end up with, we will redistrict, right? And we will create new school boundaries. And so we will be able to ensure that those schools are as full as possible and as ethnically diverse as possible. So it really is coming down to, from our perspective, what are the best buildings to keep within the district footprint, and then trying to maintain that geographic balance. I don't know a lot about Mill Creek. I know we have 87 kids of ours that go there. That's about all I know in terms of them. They're not part of the Swiss Waukesha, they're independent charter.
First of all, I want to join the thank yous for presenting this. As a retired teacher and former alderman mayor and now county supervisor, I think everyone would agree the quality and reputation of the Waukesha schools is a key factor in people deciding to live in the city and the county, which is something we all want. The number one thing that I've been hearing from my constituents is Bethesda has such a great reputation and a great school community. Is there a chance, based on the feedback you're getting, for you and your cabinet to present a 5th option that would not include the closing of Bethesda? And if that is a possibility, when might that happen? And if that's a short answer, my second question, as someone who taught at Butler Middle School for 30 years, it was mainly 7th and 8th grade. Did you and your cabinet ever consider moving some of the 6th graders back to the elementary schools?
Sure. Yeah, no, I can try both of those. So your first question, the answer is yes, right? We are getting a lot of feedback about Bethesda, and we will consider alternative plans, tweaks, things like we've talked about, to be determined, right? September into October. Secondly, 6th graders going back down could work. The challenge that we saw is that those investments we've made in the middle schools, then we're not filling them up, right? And we don't think we could walk away from those. We don't think we could try to sell them and get that $15 million back. So that's why we walked back from it, because while it fills up the elementaries, it leaves us with gaps in the middle schools, which if you haven't been in Butler recently, it's absolutely gorgeous. I never saw it before. When I got here, it was already like that. But I can only imagine how much nicer it is. Morning, the same thing, and then Westfall has a lot of nice upgrades as well. But that's the thinking. But could that be possible? Yes. 6th graders going back down. We get a lot of feedback that people didn't like the 6th graders going up when that happened, like in 10, 11. And they feel like their innocence was lost, and they might be better off being in an elementary. So it's certainly something we continue to consider.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, exactly.
So my question is, as parents in school districts, I like option B, so you out there. But D is my second choice. But my concern with D, and we have a nearby school district that has a similar model in Berlin with 7 through 12. Is there a plan in option D where we would keep the younger students separate from the older students, like New Berlin does? Because that would be my concern back to
have different, kind of like we do in the freshmen are in our Paisley area, or in the middle schools, the 6th graders and the 7th graders and the 8th graders kind of have their own hallways in terms of lockers, where some of their core stuff is. We would try to do that, but obviously they all have to go to the gym, right? The benefit of it is the 7th and 8th graders that take advanced courses, instead of doing it virtually or getting on a bus or getting on a van, could just walk down the hall. So there would have to be some interaction between them, but to the greatest extent possible, we would try to keep separation. We've heard that loud and clear from parents that they would like, if we would go with something like that, they would expect that and want that. Mary?
Thank you for giving these details. Just a quick question. We've got a room full of people here. What is your ask? What do you need from us?
Feedback, if you have it, right? Like, your questions are good, and if there's things that, as you leave here today, that you're thinking about, feel free to use these emails, use these phone numbers, and let us know what you're thinking. We didn't bring the Post-its along today, but it's an opportunity, just like I had at the Business Alliance, like I've had with other groups, right? Just talk about what it is that we're looking at, and then ultimately we'll see where we end up. But yeah, just your feedback and your engagement, and we just appreciate your love of Waukesha, because we share it, and we want to do something here that makes sense, but ultimately keeps us viable and sustainable. Pete.
First off, I know this is very emotional. People live in certain neighborhoods and do all those kinds of things, but the process that you put forth is fantastic. You and your staff, look like you guys have done a great job, and everybody should be very proud of that job. Everyone's getting a chance to put their feedback in. At the end, there's going to be tough decisions, and not everybody's going to be happy, but you're laying it out in a great way, and I just want to applaud you and your staff.
That's kind. Thank you. Michael.
Do you have opportunities for students to get feedback, or are there going to be maybe the schools when schools return for students to do feedback?
It's a good question. We haven't had anything for students yet. We're envisioning, if we had to kind of project, if we can come up with a narrowed down focus in September, we can present to the board. We don't think we can recreate the Post-it thing in the 26 meetings when school's going on, but we can do some large group auditorium type meetings, and we should consider some student pieces too. Absolutely. I appreciate the suggestion. Yes, sir.
Thank you. I'm curious about the properties that you want to sell.
Yeah.
So it's not set in stone yet, but do you have a sense of what would happen to those properties under new ownership?
Yeah, we've had conversations with Pleasantville, for example. We've had development, it's kind of mixed use, some commercial, some multifamily. The Saratoga campus, we've had conversations with a developer, and what that developer's angle, and I kind of liked it, was bringing more affordable housing to Waukesha. So it might be townhouses or something like that, so that was an idea for that one. And then White Rock, we've had a lot of interest. Obviously, it's in a TIF, it's on the river. I've had mixed use with commercial property with maybe condos or apartments below. I've had other ones say they want to tear down the entire building, so it's a mixed approach. But we have no properties under contract. I've been asked that question. None of them are under contract for any sort of development whatsoever. But we'd look to have, obviously we work closely with the city too to make sure it's matching up with their plans. Because the developer would have to get their approvals as well. But Waukesha is pretty much fully developed. We're getting there quickly. So we want to make sure it fits in for the long term for the city as well.
So it's likely the buildings are just going down and
It's possible. I don't know if I can say likely or unlikely.
too strong.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Mayor. I appreciate it.
Well, I think we all learned something. I have my notes that I was going to talk about, but I filled up the entire page, and it's 9 o'clock. What I do have to say is what's facing the school district is, and I think they recognize this, schools are the identity of the neighborhood, the community, and it goes back generations too. So there's a lot of passion involved in this, and parents feel their Mama Bear daddy bear comes out when you're talking about your kids, and especially like if they have multiple kids, and kids will be split between schools and there's changes and stuff like that. So all this does create a lot of passion and people wanting certain things to happen. What I'm going to take away from this is both school districts, municipalities, counties are all facing basically seismic changes in the coming years. Population is going down. Financing for municipalities, if anyone has until 10:30, 11 o'clock, I can keep talking. But municipalities, counties, and school districts, although don't ask me how school districts are funded because the formula is not easy to explain. But for municipalities, we are looking at, in real dollars, less money every single year, unless you have a lot of growth. And so we're facing that. The school district is facing, throughout the state, throughout the nation, less students each year. So that's something that both schools, municipalities, counties have to take into consideration, and there's major, major changes coming for everyone. But what I do have to say is I've talked to a lot of other mayors and village presidents, and we are facing those challenges, and the school district is facing those challenges, which creates a lot of angst and conflict. But remember, these things have to be done. So I take pride in the fact that I think the city of Waukesha is facing these type of challenges, the school district is facing these challenges. They're putting it out there for anyone who wishes to be involved in the process, to be involved in the process. And I'll just finish with, it's not stopping soon. It's gonna, these type of decisions are gonna keep on going. One thing when you're talking to people who are really passionate about this, remember, they're usually talking about their children, and they're also talking about the identity of their neighborhood, which creates a lot of passion. So you have to have a little bit of grace for people that, you know, it's like, well, I totally disagree with you, but it is something that where they're coming from, it is probably life-changing for them. So that's what I'm going to finish with. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Jim, for the presentation. A lot of work went into this process. Continue if you're interested in it. There's going to be still a lot more work. And thank you all for being here.